recording. So.
Yeah, perfect. There we are. All right, a proviso. This little bubble on my head was just trying to stop it look like I had shaved my head in these COVID times.
Oh, you crack me up. I love it.
Yay.
All right, and I'm just going to hit record on my thingadoodle.
Excellent.
As well.
Yep, I am recording.
And we are ready to go.
Oh my God. I'm just going to get straight into it. All right. Hi, Dominic.
How you doing?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm okay. You go.
I was just going to say, look, I'm really excited about this episode. It's a bit kooky. It's off the wall. It's, my brain that's doing the full, just heading off into tangents. So I'm looking forward to sharing this story with you.
We're in a kooky space, and I'm insanely hungover today. I know I look gorgeous, but I am so hungover that if you took a whiff of me, you'd probably get a little bit of a buzz. So I think it's going to be a very fun episode.
Okay, so we are completely loose. We are off chops. I am not hungover. I'm the opposite, sober as a judge currently. But that doesn't mean it won't change throughout this podcast potentially. Why not? It's Absolutely. 11 o'clock in the morning whilst we're recording this. By the time we finish, it'll be midday. Sharing is caring. Amazing. Okay, well, the long and short of today's episode, and again, you're just going to have to stay with me, but it's outer space. Or more specifically, it's the scary shit that happens in and around outer space, okay? I have a fear of space. Now, I looked up sort of the definition. I'm not quite at this point, but it's called astrophobia, which personally I think that's the phobia. And astrophobia, it's described as it's a severe and irrational fear of stars and space. So astrophobia is also strongly connected to the fear of aliens. So I'm not quite there. I'm not super scared of aliens. I'm more frightened around just what can happen to the human body in space, which is why I don't really want to put myself in that situation. We're not going to be talking about aliens today. That's another whole other podcast. But I'm going to talk about sort of more generally the things that frightened me as a kid. So look, Dom, I'm going to do things a little bit differently. Okay, in episode 1, I know that you told a fantastic story about cannibalism. If you haven't listened to that episode yet, do yourself a favor. So Cannibal Island was the story, the circumstances around that. Today, I'm going to do a bit of a question answer session. Okay, so yeah. So I had a few questions. So I was just interviewing myself. I spend a lot of time with myself, so we're getting really into it. And I realized I realized that if I just rambled on about space and the things that frighten me and, my phobias as a child, this pod was going to go for like 2 or 3 hours. So I thought, well, I'll narrow it down. I managed to narrow it down to 2 main questions or main fears that I had. And then at the end, I've got some bonus content, which is from a source that I found that is quite entertaining. So that's our bonus content at the end.
Oh my God, I've got so many questions already. Is it what's your source? Is it Pentagon or something like that?
I wish. It's not quite as sophisticated as that, but we'll certainly get to it. Maybe it is. Maybe the Pentagon used this source. Who knows? But essentially, as a child, some of the things that really freaked me out were usually depicted in films or pop culture or television, things like that. I was absolutely shocked and frankly appalled, Dominic, that films occasionally are not historically or scientifically accurate.
My God, shut it down.
Yeah.
I want my money back.
I actually don't. I don't believe it. So that was one of the most shocking things researching to record this podcast. That was one of the things that blew my mind. Films aren't always true, which whatever. That's a whole other podcast episode, I think. So the first question that I had, which related to films, naturally I thought this was all fact, is how long can a human last in outer space before they explode?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I immediately go, I've seen people do some pretty, in some circumstances, people are meant to, like, I don't know, last 10 minutes and they do this and they pull the lever and they save the ship, or they do all this kind of crazy stuff. And then the next thing, you know, they blow up as a balloon in one situation, or the next one they freeze over and their eyes go all glazy. Like, it's never been consistent, right?
Exactly. That is exactly right. So if you've seen The Simpsons or if you've seen Total Recall, these are the two of the pop culture references that I was going by. You know, Homer and Bart floating around in space and their heads like explode. Obviously, Total Recall, which that image is burned into my brain of Arnold Schwarzenegger's eyeballs popping out of their sockets, like, you know, just, it's so great.
The graphics of that are pretty amazing.
Oh my God.
So ahead of their time.
Unbelievable. So on a side note, I think that if Arnold Schwarzenegger wasn't the lead in that movie, which I personally thought he was really good, but if he wasn't the lead, let's say it was Bruce Willis, I feel like that movie would have been critically acclaimed. I think the storyline, I think the graphics, I think the art department did such an incredible job. I genuinely believe if it was someone else other than Arnie, it's just so good. I love it.
Yeah. So for the listeners out there that are, I don't know, still probably under the age of 20 or something, there was a time when computers weren't around to do all the special effects. So they had to rely on, like, mechanics and robots and makeup and prosthetics and all sorts of stuff. And if you have not watched that movie, or there's a million other things that we could reference, but I thought that movie was like one of those game-changing moments where you, as a child, because space is not a new topic, right? Space has been around and people have always been interested in it, but never had a movie been able to, makeup-wise or special effects-wise, able to entertain the imagination of the audience in a really gruesome, grotesque type way. It was always really silly and kind of comical because it just looked really stupid and fake. But like, when Total Recall came out, it's like, oh my God, did Arnold Schwarzenegger just die?
Yeah.
For real?
Exactly. And that's the thing. Like, no wonder as a child I was terrified of these things, because they did make it look terrifying. They made it look like, wow, I really don't want to go through that. Like, I'm not keen for my eyeballs to pop out of my skull or my tongue to swell or whatever's going to happen that these people are showing me. So, you know, researching into how long before people explode, I went to West Texas A&M University. They had some interesting information. So there's actually a professor, so Dr. Christopher S. Baird, had some answers to these strange science questions. Essentially.
Good man.
Betsy, we all know him. And look, I can't say that West Texas University is going to be any good source of information, but I liked his answer, so I'm using it. Also, for those of you playing at home who don't know what A&M stands for, because I didn't, Agriculture and Mechanical College. So there you go. So it's
what's an animal in Texas? Go the cactus football team.
Did you say what's an animal in Texas? A cactus. The cactus, the mighty cactus.
The fighting.
Yeah. Prick'em cax. Anyway. What would be there? Yeah, prick'em. Anywho. So Betty has offered me some answers to my questions. Now, he says humans don't explode in space, first and foremost. So that was the opening sentence. So I was like, do tell me more, Dr. Chris. So even though outer space represents a lack of air pressure, which usually counters the internal pressure of our body, our tissue is strong enough to handle the imbalance. So our skin and tissues is actually strong enough to withstand like that pressure change. So it actually holds everything inside of our body. So we don't explode. According to Richard Harding's book, Survival in Space, The blood vessels can withstand the internal pressure without exploding. Now, humans will die if you're left in space without a spacesuit, but you will die for the same reason as drowning. So you'll die from asphyxiation, which is also horrible, but you don't explode. So it was kind of answering those questions for me. Now, they're saying that, you could probably survive for about 9 to 12 seconds if you didn't have a spacesuit. And there's other, dangerous effects that can happen, but they don't cause immediate death, and you certainly don't explode. There was also...
So I was just going to say, you're a floating meat bubble. And
yeah, correct.
That's good to know.
Precisely. So I was looking at some other content as well. I found a really, cute little YouTube channel. It's about myths being debunked. So it's essentially Mythbusters, but, another little YouTube video. So the host gave a bit of a wrap up on if you found yourself in space without a spacesuit. So you would be severely sunburnt depending on where you were in space. So you would, like, within a nanosecond, you'd crispy, like you're completely sunburnt from the sun, naturally. You would be mutated in some way. So your cells and your DNA are actually changing because of the radiation in space. So like the gamma rays and things. So your cells and DNA can actually start to be altered. So you're sunburnt, you're mutated, you'd be suffocating and very slowly freezing to death. So there's a bit going on. If you're keen for an adventure in space and you really want to try some adventure sports, just pop out of the ship without a suit on. You could give all these activities a go. I think...
you know what? That's what I feel like with a big bad hangover. I girded up, I got the shakes, I'm mutated, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's it. My DNA is changing. It's turning into vodka. Like, it's the same sort of thing. So one of the really fascinating things that I found, so one of the other, apart from exploding, that's been depicted in pop culture is if you'll freeze immediately. The way that the temperatures work in space, because it's a vacuum, are completely different. So whilst you would freeze, it's not like a snap thing. Like, it's not bang, you're also automatically an ice block. It happens really, really slowly. So you just start to, it probably takes, I don't know. I don't think anybody's really tested it out and managed to live to tell the tale, but it does happen a lot slower than people may think. So
hey, just Princess Leia did it, and she came back. She did a little hand finger jingly, whatever. Praise be with you, source crap, and she survived. So
perfect.
There's been one case, because that's true. But
movies don't lie. That's what I'm still going with, even though, I did preface this whole podcast with the fact that they are not always accurate. I'm still going with that. So, you've got about 15 seconds to get yourself to safety before you pass out. So you can still be out there for 15 seconds, enjoy your time, do what you need to do. Then there's about a minute, so about 60 seconds for someone to come and save you. So 15 seconds, you've passed out, so you can't help yourself. Another 45 seconds, someone needs to try to save you. Then, you'll actually die if you don't get rescued in that time. So you don't actually explode in space, which news to me. But this is a kind of podcast where, we do talk about things that frighten us. And that was one of the big fears that I had as a young person.
Well, I think you touched on it. It's the fact that at least the fear for me is if something terrible happened to me and I just was gone in a blip, like, then I can't be afraid of it. I didn't feel anything. I couldn't even comprehend the terrible thing that was happening because I'm just gone. I think the scariest part of this for me, what you're talking about, is the fact that it isn't instant. That you could be out in space and know that you have seconds to live, and you not only can't you breathe, you're getting a real bad tan, you're also cold, and you're growing another foot out your chest or something. It's like, I think it's the knowledge that while this is happening to you, it's like drowning. I think it's that you are aware of the horrible thing that's happening to you, and your options are pretty limited. It's not like you can get an Uber and go home when you're in space. So I think that's where the fear part comes into me. The horror of this is obviously the physical excruciating pain, but also the awareness of you will know what's happening to you and feel every bit of it.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. Like that is, and I feel like that's a bit of a central topic for a lot of what we talk about, a lot of the, the subjects that we come up with. But it just presents in different ways. And it's so fascinating how people fear certain things in different ways. And just as a kid, space was always such a big one for me. Like I just that fear of the unknown, the fear of, those things happening to you and happening slowly. Awful.
It's also like an invisible force as well. It's not like it's a rock falling on your head or a bullet and a bang. It's like space is real quiet. Nothing's moving. Like it's also in the stillness of it.
Yeah.
The vastness of it. You wouldn't hear anything. You'd just be, all you'd probably hear is your own breath in your own heartbeat.
Yeah, that's it. And just like, the blood rushing into you. Yeah. Oof. Okay. Yuck.
All right, one down.
So one down.
Now.
Exactly. So guys, please feel free to use this as a survival pod. Like if you're heading off into space, if you're like, if we, Elon, Bezos, Shatner, if you guys are listening, please take this as a survival pod. So now what what you're in for, how long you can survive out there. Just queue someone up to rescue within that 45 seconds. You'll be fine. You'll be so fine. I can't imagine there would be any ongoing side effects from gamma radiation or anything like that. It'd be fine.
That's a really good point. I want to call out Leonard Nimoy. I mean, sadly, he's not with us anymore, but Spock never gave us the lowdown on the realities of space as a science officer. So you kind of dropped the ball there a bit, Spock.
Well, exactly. I didn't want to bring that up, but exactly. That's what we're here to do. We're here to educate. We're here to provide a survival guide for space specifically, if you're there without a spacesuit. We have zero qualifications to be providing any kind of advice. So take it as you will. But I think that's, what we're developing into. It's almost like a bit of a self-help potty as well.
Yeah. In fact, he should have changed his little signature piece to, instead of being live long and prosper, it should be like, live for 15 seconds and get burnt and mutated.
I just feel like it just didn't roll off the tongue quite as much. Get sunburnt and have an extra leg.
Doesn't roll off the tongue quite as well, does it?
Yeah, it's not quite as good, but it's a work in progress. Yeah, we can workshop that. All right, so that's next question. Okay, so next question. Question number 2. What would happen if an asteroid hit the Earth? So we're talking about not like a grapefruit asteroid. We're talking like a fuck off asteroid, like a massive, we're talking the dinosaurs level asteroid. What would happen if an asteroid hit the Earth? Okay, now Ben Affleck is busy with J-Lo now. So he can't get time off his oil rig job to go and rescue us. Again, that's a whole other thing, why they would train oil riggers to be astronauts, not the other way. A whole other story. I'm sure there's dedicated podcasts to discussing that issue. But, what more specifically, sort of, I know we're talking about space, but then that's coming from space, yeah? So space started it. What would then happen on Earth? Now, as a kid, this was one of my most prominent fears day to day. So I currently attend therapy and have done for a while. Mental health, very important. But I feel like it really started when this was a day-to-day fear for me as a child, an asteroid hitting Earth. I was so frightened that, weather patterns, weather reports on television would sometimes cause me anxiety because it was connected to space. That was, something that I lived with. And we're all a bit kooky. We've all got our thing. Mine's asteroids. So, go with it. Hopefully, maybe one of our listeners out there had a similar kind of fear, please write in and let us know so that I don't feel like I'm Robinson Crusoe on that one.
Yep.
But that's, totally rational for a 7-year-old to fear asteroids, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
And again, we grew up in a time when pop culture and things like that were being shown to us that had never been able to be imagined or shown in cinema or TV or books and things, like not to that scale. So it's pretty influential. I can imagine getting scared about that at an impressionable age. So.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm just a huge absorber of pop culture and media and television, movies and things like that. It's huge. I mean, people are probably picking up on that after listening to us speak.
Not so subtle about it.
Yeah, we can't really go half a paragraph without dropping in some pop culture reference. But look, I dealt with it. That's fine. But you're right. You do, kind of see these things and they make an impression on a young mind. So what would happen if an asteroid hit Earth? Its official title of that is called an impact event. So what would it look like if there was an impact event? Not the same kind of impact event if you eat like a whole bunch of cheese and then you struggle to, have a BM for the next couple of days. Different kind of impact event. But according to spacecampturkey.com, that's where we go to for all of our up-to-date space knowledge.
I did not expect to hear that phrase today, but we'll go with it. Okay,
so the basics are explained on Space Camp Turkey. I was pleased to see. So the very first thing that when you said if an asteroid hit Earth, what would happen? The very first thing that they have on their website is it is totally acceptable to worry about an asteroid crashing into Earth. That was the first thing they had. So straight away I was like, these are my people. Thanks, Space Turkey. Oh, my God.
She's on the phone to a therapist straight away. You to me. I can't be afraid of this.
Space Turkey says I'm normal. So Space Turkey, it turns out it's a website for children. So it just helps to explain space concepts and scientific concepts to kids. But I was fine with that because that was my inner child who was still concerned. So they helped me out with that. Now, if an asteroid hit Earth, so if there was an impact event, the dust and the smoke would essentially go into the atmosphere, which would block the sun. Now, turns out that's bad because if the sun's blocked, the planet temperatures, the total temperature of the planet would drop to quite significant levels. Also, naturally, all living things need sunlight, to survive in whatever way that may be. But if an asteroid did hit Earth, that's probably the number one concern, aside from the actual impact itself. If it's going to cause something like that, which will actually alter the climate more than we've already done ourselves, it would be a bad thing. So if an asteroid the size of an apartment, it's going to destroy probably one, like a city, maybe. Depends on the size. Okay. If an asteroid the size of a 20-story building, it can, flatten a continent. So it really is dependent on the size of the asteroid itself and where it hits as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So it would basically cause what they call, so looking on Space Turkey, it would cause what they call a impact winter. So it would be Snowpiercer, like it's going to turn into impact winter. So plant life is going to die off within weeks. Large trees can survive for decades, which is good because they have a store of sugar in their systems and they've got a really slow metabolism. So trees would last for a few decades, but with all the other plants and everything like that, obviously wildlife, that sort of stuff, microbes, small creatures, that's really all we're going to have. A lot of the big creatures that rely on our plants and our environment and our ecosystem would start to die off because there would be no source of food. Humans, however, we could survive. So, providing the planet itself doesn't crumble, like if it's not an asteroid that's going to be, planet size and it doesn't split us in half, it's just going to cause us to have that impact winter, but humans could survive. Their recommendation is that we dig tunnels. So we go closer to the core of the Earth where it's warmer. So that's what we would need to arrange. So again, we can call Ben Affleck, get his crew, Bruce Willis, those guys drill closer to the core of the Earth. We could potentially survive, but it's not going to be it's not going to be a great lifestyle. It's going to be cold all the time. There's no sun, so it'd just be, dark or like dusk.
Vitamin D.
Yeah, exactly. So we'd have to make sure that we get some supplements happening. So Swiss, please feel free to sponsor us.
Yeah,
that's it. Centrum. All those ones, no problems. So I went on to another website, although Space Turkey did give me plenty of great information. There's another website. It is called popsci.com, which is, popular science. So again, it gives you a real basic rundown of, popular scientific questions, which is good because it doesn't hurt to grow our brains and to look at things that we might not understand. So I rate these websites. So PopSci says we could live in submarines as well. So humans could exist. We could live in submarines in the deepest and warmest parts of the ocean. So the other option, though, which might be more attractive, is nuclear or geothermal power sources. So they've said moving to Iceland would be a great move because 87% of their houses use geothermal energy.
I was going to say, I've been to Iceland and it is such an amazing place. If you ever get the opportunity to go, please do. It is astounding to see how they have embraced their proximity to, geothermal pockets and lands and phenomena that happen in the world. And you drive down the freeways and highways and stuff, and you can just see all these power plants and stuff. It's really quite spectacular and beautiful.
That sounds amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, so those are some options. So again, like this is a how to survive an impact event with Dom and Kate, because that's the sources people are going to, the most well-known. Popular Science, Space Turkey, Dominic, Kate. Boom, that's your list.
All your answers.
So yeah, all the answers you'll ever need. So we're going to go to Iceland. You can live in a submarine. I would prefer not to exist than live in a submarine. Again, I could do an episode on submarines potentially. But yeah, also closer to the Earth, so digging down closer to the core of the Earth to survive. The only catch, and this is what I found, is that the sun doesn't just heat the Earth, but it actually keeps the planet in orbit. So if that suddenly disappeared, like the sun went away or it was impacted in terms of the actual orbit of the planet Earth, our planet would just like fly off into outer space, like a ball on a string. Pew, gone.
Pew.
Then we're stuffed. No geothermal springs are going to help us if we get sucked into a black hole.
You can dig and dig as much as you like.
Yeah. So ultimately, asteroid hitting Earth is not great, but an asteroid that is big enough to alter the climate of the planet that's quite a rare possibility. I'm not going to say it's never going to happen because, who would have ever guessed a global pandemic happening in our lifetime? But there are things that NASA and other space stations and space organizations are doing and continue to do in the event of that happening. So, we can sort of trust that we'd have some people that can try and help us out. Otherwise, pack your bags and we'll go to Iceland.
Well, I'm sure. I know the Australian government just it's got a few submarines lying around that aren't doing much at the moment, and I think the French are a bit pissy at us. So maybe we could get some of them too.
Yeah, absolutely. We can work something out. We'll just hop on the phone to them and just get it sorted. Just borrow a sub.
I could build one. How hard could it really be?
That's so true. How hard could it be to make a submarine that can withstand the pressure of being under the ocean? It can't be that difficult.
All right, I'll just go to Bunnings and sort something out. Get some sheet metal.
Yeah, sheet metal, some 2x4s. Is that that would work.
Hot glue gun.
Perfect.
Cool.
We'll brainstorm. We might even we could do some bonus content about how to build a sub after this.
Yes, actually, listeners, draw, either get your kids or yourself, and draw what would your submarine look like, and submit it to us. We want to see what your sub looks like.
Absolutely. There's been an impact event. Where are you going to live? Tell us where you're going to live. I want to know. All right, so that basically wraps up a bit about the asteroid hitting Earth. Obviously, there's a lot of ifs, buts, and maybes about that, but essentially, it's bad. That's what we can determine. It's not going to be great if a ginormous asteroid hits Earth. Which brings me to our bonus content of this pod. So my two big questions I've addressed. Now let's get into our bonus content. Now, before I share
a sound or something to signify it.
Just like
I was making a ding, a bell.
Yeah.
We'll invest in a bell. And
Perfect.
The bonus content sound.
Yeah, you can even add in post. Drop in a bell right here. Perfect. Okay, so before I get to my main bonus content source, what I did enjoy is whilst I was researching for this episode, I went to a few websites, to find that information, and they usually have, pages that might interest you based on what you were searching for. So I had a "you may also like" page that I had there. So some of the questions were, what would happen if there were no moon? Space junk is a disaster waiting to happen. What would happen if gas planets collided? So these are, relevant pages. And then finally on that same ad, it said, why can you pee without pooing, but you can't poo without peeing? So obviously...
It would be a shitty group episode if we didn't have a poo.
Exactly. That's so true. But I just felt like that was relevant to me. That's actually really fair. I was looking up about asteroids, so thank you for bringing that up about the pee-poo situation. Thanks, internet. Perfect. Okay, so that's my little sidebar about my search. I want everybody to strap yourself in to your toilet seats because this source that I've used has given me some cold, hard facts, and you need to be ready, okay? I am privileged enough to have in my library a Reader's Digest Atlas of the World published in 1987. Now, the opening for this amazing publication says, next to a dictionary, perhaps an atlas is the most useful and most frequently consulted reference book in a home library. Oh, they are so correct. It's amazing. Now, I know what you're thinking. Kate, this was done in 1987. Is this information going to be up to date? Is it going to be relevant? No, but it is really entertaining in terms of what they thought and what has actually occurred. So I was looking through. They have a great section at the beginning. Preceding the maps is a World of Wonders section. Okay, now this examines an in-depth journey from the origin of the universe 15 billion years ago to the choices for managing the planet mankind faces as we approach the 21st century of the present era. Spoiler alert for the 1987 Reader's Digests, we fucked it up. we messed up a fair bit.
You got it wrong. We got it wrong. We're still getting it wrong.
Yeah.
Welcome to our nightmare.
Yeah. Welcome to the world. Welcome to the 21st century. Now, the first few sections, they have up to the minute hot takes on space. So I want to share a couple of highlights with you that I found in the space section. So page 8, which I'll take some photos. I'll pop it up on the socials of this beautiful book. It's quite large as well, so it's just an event to look through. This book is an event. So if you flick over to page 8, you can be buoyed by the title, Stars, Cosmic Dust to Nuclear Furnace. So that's the first topic that you can, it's really chipper. Yeah. And like when I think nuclear furnace, like does everybody, there was this little thing called Chernobyl. Does anyone remember? It was like, I don't know. It wasn't very big. It was just like a little, thing that happened. But I'm not putting nuclear furnace on my Christmas list. It's not happening.
Okay.
Don't want to.
It doesn't instill like excitement and happiness. It's definitely setting us up for a bit of fear.
Correct.
But, that's what we're all about here. So go on.
Exactly. So then you have a look at the first page of this book, which is titled "The Universe: From Big Bang to an Uncertain Future." So again, filled with optimism, and it's just, there's so much joy. If you're already feeling doomed about the world, which as a 7-year-old child I was, I've managed to work through that. Like, many, many therapy sessions and dollars later, I'm working through it. But you can always look to the 1987 Reader's Digest to cheer yourself up about it. Yeah. Especially what I enjoyed was the closing paragraph of this section. It's just that sense of optimism that I really like about it. This is what they had in the closing paragraph. Astronomers cannot be certain about the future of the universe. It'll either collapse again under its own gravity to a single point or continue its expansion forever, becoming cold, empty, dead, and dark.
Like my Grindr profile.
That's perfect. So this book, this Reader's Digest, it's a year older than me. Okay. And my mother has owned it since then. I no wonder if it's one of the most frequently consulted books in my household libraries. No wonder I had a daily fear of asteroids hitting the planet at 7 years old. It's Reader's Digest fault.
Not really light reading. It's not a good bedtime story. So
no.
Yeah, they're very blunt and trying to just. I can get what they're trying to do. They're trying to be like just matter of fact down the line. Here's the reality of it, but it's like, okay, put a little David Attenborough sprinkle on it. Give us some, he tells us some pretty horrible, heartbreaking things, like in some pretty hard truths that are very soul-destroying and upsetting. But then there's also like, oh look, here's a monkey or having sex, and isn't that kind of funny?
Yeah, good for them.
Yeah, right.
I agree.
Balances it. Give a bit of positivity, and you can slam us with some hard truths. Not just, oh yeah, it's either going to collapse, or it's just going to grow so big and cold and dark and desolate.
We'll all die anyway.
Fuck that away.
Yeah, exactly. So that's probably the reason why I did have that fear as a kid. But now I think that I've done my research. I've got those plans in place. Like, we've given each other those tips, those handy hints and tips on space survival, which we can put, we'll put it on our Instagram page so that you can have it as just like a handy guide. But Dominic, those were the two big questions I had about space, about trying to conquer my fear of space, to understand a little bit more about it. And then finally, our bonus content of our Reader's Digest 1987 World Atlas. So that's my episode for today.
Yeah, I can't wait to see pictures of this book. I'm sure we've probably all got one. I know that my folks got like an Encyclopedia Britannica or something from the 60s or something like that. And there's some choice words about some, different topics. They haven't aged well. They haven't stepped up well.
Yeah, I feel as if there's definitely been some growth in some areas, in society and of the planet. But I can't promise that, any books from any of the Encyclopedia or Reader's Digests are going to be stacking up.
Not a bestseller. So, like, in a summary for our listeners, what do you think is the thing that scares you the most, or is most frightening about space? Is it the vastness of it and just the violence and the unknown? It's quite a harsh and violent atmosphere. Well, not atmosphere. I can't use that word. It's
a place. Thing. Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. No, I'd be very keen to see. I want to see submarines. I want to see where you'd live if there was an impact event, and I want to hear about people's thoughts on space for sure.
Well, thank you. I'm definitely, I'm asking the bigger life questions, which is exactly what you should do when you're a morning. So thank you, Kate. I'm feeling super inspired by that.
It's all going to be fine. Don't worry about it. We're going to be fine. I don't know how. We'll work it out.
Yeah. We're here for such a short time. We're a blip. I'm sure things will carry on well and truly after you and I get married.
Absolutely.
It's someone else's problem. But thanks for that, Kate. And a bit of a somewhat of it, because you're talking about a place or an environment that really me. I thought for next week's episode that I would focus on something that's kind of similar in the fact that it's a place that makes me scared. And I'm going to be focusing on like cemeteries. I think cemeteries, however you want to say it, wherever you are in the world, I don't care. Get angry and tell me on social media I'm pronouncing things wrong. Like last week, I kept on saying Moscow instead of Moscow, but I'm sure we'll hear about it.
No, we'll edit in post.
Yeah, I thought for next week I'm going to do a story about the story of Russian mummified dolls, and this man that spent a lot of time in cemeteries. It's quite eerie, so I think it's a good link from this week's episode to next week.
Absolutely.
What places make you really
I was running through all of those classic places when you said we're going to go to a place. I was like, is it the dentist? Is it the doctor? Is it Costco? Is it Dan Murphy's and the announcement of a lockdown? Like, where are we going with this?
No, I know it seems really cliche, but cemeteries, even as an adult, they fascinate me. Like, it's not like I avoid them, but I just think they are the quintessential setting for you to get scared. And the amount of stories are just limitless. But I've picked this specific one, not because it's just about cemeteries, there's a whole other backstory, and we'll get into it. I can't wait to share it. But yeah.
Awesome.
I'm looking forward to it. So.
That sounds great, Dom. I cannot wait. Hey, no worries. Thank you, Dom. And I look forward to seeing you next week for your episode about cemeteries.
Live long and prosper.
Get sunburnt and grow an extra limb. It's just not working.
If you had to have another limb, what would you want?
Oh shit, that's a great question. Maybe an extra arm, because then you could just like carry extra stuff. You've got more mobility, like you've got, so an extra arm. But I would like a fully functional, just one out of the armpit or something like that. So you've actually got, 2 arms to hold something up, another arm to drill something. I don't know. You could just do heaps of cool stuff. What about you?
My mind went straight to a non-PG space, so I'm just going to leave that there.
Well, I don't have one of those to start with, so do I get to have an extra one, or can I just have one of them just to see what it's like?
Sure.
Perfect.
What it's like.
I mean, it's our mutation. Right. We can do with it what we want.
Exactly. It's choose, right?
Oh, God.
Awesome note. I think we should wrap up.
I agree. All right. But thanks, Dom. I'll see you next week.
No worries. Bye.